Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for coming and joining us for the learning of Torah Hashem Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. As always, we give thanks to TorahAnytime.com for giving us this amazing platform to teach Torah all over, literally all over the world. We also thank Kol HaLashon for giving us its global network. We thank Torah Communications Network, the great pioneer of Habatzas Torah in the world that carries our shiurim. We thank our Zoomers, our subscribers, the people that view us on YouTube, and the people that are here in our flagship station at Lakewood in Gudis Zev of Fairways. Tonight we have a very special sponsor. This is a sponsor who is from one of my longest subscribers. Now, when I say my longest subscribers, I believe they are subscribers for over 40 years. That's every week for 40 years. The Fassler family is sponsoring the shir, L'Refuah Shalema, for Gedalia Aryeh Ben Fega Sima. Again, it should be a Refuah Shalema to Gedalia Aryeh Ben Fega Sima, B'Seich Shar Chele Yisrael. If you would like to sponsor next week's Haggadah shir, 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com. As is brought down in Shulchan Aruch, one of the first minhagim of this season is the minig to give kimcha de pischa, otherwise known as mois chitin. Kimcha de pischa means flour for Pesach, and mois chitin means money for grain. And as the Ramah explains, that since every Jew is supposed to feel freedom on the night of the Seder, like we say, Chayiv Adam Liroi Ses Atzmai Ki'ilu Hu Yatzim Mitzrayim, as if we came out of Egypt. In order to feel freedom, we have to have the provisions. And as it says in the first Mishnah in Arvei Pesachim, in the 10th parak of Pesachim, Afilu Ani Yisrael, even an Ani of Yisrael, drinks the Arba Kaisis Batseba, right? And if he doesn't have the money, we give him from the charity, because he also has to feel the heady, free feeling of the Arba Kaisis. Now, I want to tell you a personal observation of mine. If you just came from behind the Iron Curtain, and there were many people who came behind the Iron Curtain, and they didn't know anything. Somebody told me they remember that when they came from Russia, and they saw a McDonald's, they thought it was a kosher restaurant, and the McDonald's sign were two luchais. The two yellow signs of the McDonald's were luchais. People came, they didn't know anything. If somebody was a greener, and they didn't know anything, and they heard mois chitin and kimcha de pischa, what would they think that meant? I know that I would have think it means money to buy the grain for your matzah, and kimcha de pischa, the flour of Pesach, to make your own matzah. Of course, we know that it doesn't mean that. It means that which we give away to others. And I want to derive from this that the mitzvah of giving flour to poor people is a bigger mitzvah than you eating the matzah yourself. Now, I know that's a remarkable statement, I know that's a remarkable statement because matzah, the Zohar says, is michla da'asvasa. It's the bread of health. Matza is an acronym of Mikol Tzara Hatzileni. You save me from all distress. But the matzah that we give to the poor, that they could have matzah, that's even a greater mitzvah than our eating matzah ourselves. And it's meduyik. How do we start Magid? We start Magid with the declaration, Kol dichvin yeseh v'yechel. All those that are hungry, come and eat. Kol ditzrich yeseh v'yiftzach. All those that need, come and have Pesach. Of course, the yeseh v'yiftzach means that not only should you have what to eat, but you also should have the avir of Pesach, the atmosphere, the aura of freedom. But the question is obviously obvious. Everybody asks this question. Everybody who's anybody asks this question. Why are we inviting people after we already made Kiddush? It's cute. You're inviting people after Kiddush. You have to have Kiddush in order to eat. You're inviting people after you have Kiddush, and you're inviting people when the door is closed. So what is that about? So Rav Elyashiv Tzaddik Livracha Zchus Yagan Aleinu says that this declaration is part of the mitzvah of Vigarat Levincha. And we're teaching our children that you should know we gave Kimcha de Pischa. We gave Ma'is Chitin so that people could enjoy in their own homes. And we're teaching them, the very first thing that we're teaching them, before anything, is Kol Dichvin Yeseh V'Yechol, Kol Ditzrich Yeseh V'Yiftzach. That's the way Jews behave. Now, we know that the Torah says that Pesach is Keneged Avram, Shavuos is Keneged Yitzchak, and Sukkot is Keneged Yaakov. So we're teaching our children in the spirit of Avram, especially for those that hold that Avram Avinu passed away on Erev Pesach. One of the reasons why we eat the egg in the Seder night is to remember the Avelus of the passing of Avram Avinu. So the first thing we're doing is we're setting it as, after all, the night of the Seder is when we make memories. The night of the Seder is where we teach our children. This is when we were taken to be Jews. L'kachti eschem li la'am. We teach our children, you have to know, we have 3 Jewish traits. One of them is that we're baishanim. We have a sense of shame. It says that ikvasa de Mashiach pnei dor kepnei akelef. The face of the generation will be like the face of a dog, and one of the pshatim is a dog is not a modest animal. Not a modest animal. There will be a loss of modesty. There will be a loss of shame. But we see the way society walks around. There's a complete loss of shame. But we teach them also that besides being baishanim, we're rachmanim and goimlei chasadim. We're people that are merciful, and we're people that are kind. And therefore, Magid starts off with this declaration of Kol Dichvin. It's not that we're inviting people now. We're not inviting them. The door's closed. It's too late. But this is the first, over the course of the evening, we're going to be teaching our children many lessons. So we got to Levincha. The very first lesson we say is Kol Dichvin Yeseh V'Yechel, Kol Ditzrich Yeseh V'Yiftzach. Rav Ferber of London, he wrote a sefer, Keramat Tzvi. He says, sadly, ironically, he says, this is the reason why We say this in Aramaic. Holach Ma'ani is said in Aramaic. The rest of the Haggadah is said in Hebrew. But Holach Ma'ani is said in Aramaic. So he says, sadly, we don't want the angels don't understand Aramaic. We don't want the angels to understand. Because when the angels hear a cheap person say this, they say, yeah, he's saying Kol Dechvin Yesev Yechel with the doors closed. The only time he opens the door is later on by Shvach HaMoscha when the meal is finished. So that's a little hypocrisy, and we don't want the angels to hear that. That's why we say it in Aramaic. That's a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek, but Referber is speaking strongly to those that are kamtzanim. I want to share with you a Maisa that points to the greater importance of giving matzah for the poor than our eating matzah ourselves. It's a true story. Rabbi Elimelech Biderman brings down this story. It's about the great Reb David from Lelever. Of course, the Lelever made mitzvah matzah and put tremendous, when they went to bake the matzah, they had all kinds of kavanas and all kinds of yichudim and shemais when they made the matzah with all kinds of chumras. A few days before Pesach, a famished poor man came, and he looked really, really hungry. And Rav David Lelever started giving him his prized Pesach mitzvah matzah to eat. And the man was eating hungrily, and he kept on giving him more. And the Rebbetzin got alarmed. That's the Seder matzah, that's the holy matzah for the Seder. After the poor person left, so the Rebbetzin asked, we had other food. You could have given him potato and eggs, good, delicious potato and eggs. I have good food, I could have given him a nice piece of roast. Why did you give the matzah? He says, there's a famous Rashi. It said the Torah gives us a directive, Ushmartem es hamatzos. You should guard the matzahs, and we know literally that means that we're supposed to guard the matzahs, mishash, from the beginning of its growth, right? That's the meaning of shmura matzah, right? From the time of the ketzira, they would guard the matzah, and the Rashi says, "Al tikre es hamatzahs, ela es hamitzvahs." You should guard the mitzvahs. And he says, what does it mean? Mitzvah boli yodcha al tachmitzena. A mitzvah that comes to your hand, don't let it ferment. Don't push it off. You should know that this is with good frumma Jews like us. This is the greatest weapon of the Yetzer Hara. If somebody comes and says, why don't you give to this tzedakah? And the Yetzer Hara says to you, don't give tzedakah. You won't listen. You're from a Jew. So he says, don't give now. You'll see what you'll have left later after you buy. Learn. Yetzer Hara won't succeed if he tells you shouldn't learn. What do you mean, a Jew shouldn't learn? But he'll say, not now. Now is tax season. In the summer, then you'll make Siddharim to learn. That's the method. The method of the Yetzer Hara is never to say no. You could say no to somebody who's, cavalier, but to good people, the Yetzer Hara doesn't say no. What do you mean no? What do you mean no? He says, not now. That's why it says, Ein va'ato ela loshen tshuva. You have to do it now. Okay? So this lesson is learned from the pasuk of Shmartem es hamatzos, mitzvah abol yodcha al tachmitzena. A mitzvah that comes to your hand, don't delay it. So the Lelev Rebbe said, Hashem could have taught this by any mitzvah. Right? By Hashavas Haveda, he could say, don't put it off. By building a makkah, he could say, don't put it off. Why did he teach it by the matzah? Here I have an example. An ani comes and he's hungry. Mitzvah abal yodcha al tachmitzena. The most delicious thing that I had in the house was this fresh, crispy, fresh baked. I'm giving it to the ani. And this is what we're saying here now. Kimcha de Pischa, you're right. If I came off the boat and I would say Kimcha de Pischa means buy flour to make your matzahs. Ma'as chitim means get money to buy the grain to make matzahs. So we say, no, that's not. You want to know what Kimcha de Pischa is? What you give away to other people. That's the highest level. And by the way, just that we should get a full appreciation of this, that when it says, mitzvah abol yodcha al tachmitzena, it surely applies to when your wife asks you to do something. When your wife asks you to do something, the usual response in most homes is not now. So the pasuk is saying, don't say not now. Mitzvah abol yodcha al tachmitzena. The same thing is true with a child with parents. Could you help me with something? Not now, ma. Mitzvah abol yodcha al tachmitzena. That's a great klal. And you have to know again, like I said, this is the way that the Yetzer Hara operates. Somebody says, I taka don't daven good. One day I'm going to learn the meaning of the words. One day? He's been saying one day for the last 50 years. Last 50 years. One day I'm going to learn what the word. Mitzvah abol yodcha al tachmitzena. A mitzvah that comes to your hand, don't let it ferment. Do it now. You have to know this is a great Pesach lesson, because we know that we ran out of time. If we didn't go out of Mitzrayim at midnight, at least if we didn't close the doors against the Egyptian idolatry at midnight, we would have never been redeemed. Right? It says that we sank already to the 49th degree of Tumah, and if it wouldn't have been Bach Hatzais, we would have been doomed. So you have to take it, you have to know that this is what it says in Pirkei Avos. It's the way of mankind. Al toimer likishe efne eshne. Don't say when I get around to it, I will do it. Shema lo tipana. You might never get around to it. I saw this. I saw a great nugget, a great wealthy person. He told me, says, Rabbi Weiss, this might surprise you, but I plan one day to learn in Kaila. But now I'm busy with my business, but one day I plan to learn in Kaila. I plan to make up for all the lost time. The only thing happened is shortly after he told me that, he got pancreatic cancer and he died. That's a chilling reminder. Al toimer likishe efne eshne. Don't say when I get around to it, I'll learn. Shema lo tipane. Maybe a person won't get around to it. Now, we see that the Haggadah, the Maggid, starts off. There are many things that we do on Pesach. There are many things that we speak about at the Seder. But of all the different things, the lessons of Mida Keneged Mida, of the Makis, there are so many things and ideas that we learn about at the Seder. The first idea we talk about is Kol Dechvin Yeseh V'Yechel, is to give tzedakah, to be charitable. Perhaps this is because of an Arizal. In the Arvei Nachal, it brings down that the Heilige Arizal tells us that the Yidden that suffered in Mitzrayim were the Gilgulim, were the reincarnation of the people of 3 generations. The Dor HaMabel, the wicked Dor HaMabel, the Dor Enosh, that was a third of the world was wiped out, and Sodom and Amorah. Now, the purpose of a Gilgul is to correct what was in a previous the reincarnation corrects what was in the previous life form. Now we know that the Dor HaMabel lo nechtam gzar din ella ala gezel. Rashi says that the decree against the world was sealed because of theft, because they didn't have the right attitude towards money. The same thing is true in Sodom v'Amorah. We know Sodom v'Amorah, it says that they were roim v'chatoim. The Gemara says roim begufam. They were sexually perverted. You see what they wanted to do. What they wanted to do. They weren't satisfied with Lot's daughters. They wanted to mob the house and do perversions with the men. The Malachim disguised as men. Roim begufam v'chatoim b'mamayinam. And they sinned in money. The society of Sodom v'Amorah was extremely corrupt when it came to money. Extremely corrupt. It says that when an Ani came to Sodom, each of them wrote their name on their coin and gave it to the poor person. So Gemara says this. Then there was a rule that you couldn't sell food to an outside pauper. So he went to the store and they said, sorry, we don't sell to outsiders. Until finally he succumbed and he died. And then everybody took their coin back that had their name on it. This was Sodom. We know that Lot had a righteous daughter that was secretly keeping an Ani alive. So they saw an anomaly that an Ani is living. They put surveillance on the Ani. And they caught Lot's daughter breaking the rules. So they put her to death. How did they put her to death? Cruel and unusual punishment. They coated her body with honey, put her among swarms of bees, and they stung her to death. That's what it says. Hashem said, let me go down, hakitzakosa, and see if, like the screams, it actually happened. This what they did to Lot's daughter, doomed them. But what was the symbolism of what they did to her? They said, you want to be good? You want to be goody-goody and give? We'll show you what will happen if you give. They'll be bloodsuckers, and they'll suck you to death. That was their way of looking at money was completely corrupt. And therefore we say that when we were in Mitzrayim, we had to suffer halach ma'anya, eating the bread of affliction, in order to atone for those generations of Sodom and the Mabel. And we're misaking it, that's what we do, we're misaking it by, to the contrary, kol dichvin yeseh v'yechel, kol ditzrich yeseh v'yifsach. We're misaking it with the Moyeschiten, with the Kimcha, the Pischa. So the Ma'is Chitin and the Kimcha the Pesach people say, oh, I buy the finest matzah, I'm getting shatza matzah, and I'm getting only shmura matzah, and we're going to eat matzah all the time, and very nice. But even greater than that is the matzah we give to those that are in the need. That's why Mesakin the Chait. That's why they suffered in Mitzrayim of eating the halach ma'anya. We won't get over to the other significance of the matzah, and that is that we got out before the dough had time to ferment, and the freedom we won't get out till the end of the Seder. Maggid starts off with the lach ma'anya, because that's even greater than our own matzah. This is the chiddush that I'm telling people should know how important it is. We spend a lot of money on Pesach. A lot of money on Pesach. Let's not forget the Kimcha de Pesach. Let's not forget the Ma'is Chitin. The Baba Sali, Tzadik L'Vrachas Chusi Yagan Aleinu, says we all know that in our Yom Tov davening, we say, V'hasiyenu Hashem Aleikeinu. May Hashem elevate us. Es birkas mayadecha. The blessings of the holiday, l'chaim, l'shalom, for life and peace, l'simcho, l'sasain, for happiness and joy. He says this hasiyenu, this elevation, comes especially because of the Ma'is Chitin and the tzedakah that we give. He says Chaim, and that we know is tzedakah because tzedakah tatzim amavas. Tzedakah saves from death. I've said many times that there's a reason why tzedakah saves from death. Because money is called damim, blood. Why is money called blood? Because we give of our lifeblood to make money. A person goes to work, so let's say he makes, in a 40-hour work week, he makes $2,000. Right? It's a lot of money. 40 hours, he makes $2,000. So that means every hour he makes $50. Right? So if then he goes ahead and gives to tzedakah $200, he's giving away 4 hours of his life. Took him 4 hours to make the $200. And we know that Hashem pays back, he pays back a lot. So he says, you gave 4 hours of your life, I'm going to give you a lot of life. That's why tzedakah gives life. So that's Asiyenu Hashem Lekeinu Esbirchas Ma'adecha L'chaim. He says, Simcha and Sasan, there's a famous Yalkut. The Yalkut says, you take care of my 4, I'll take care of your 4. It's brought down in Rashi and Chumash. If you take care of my 4, the poor man, the orphan, the widow, and the stranger, the convert, I'll take care of your 4. Your son, your daughter, your servant, and your maidservant. Now, of course, I'll take care of you, and I'll take care of your wife who is like you, of course. So we see that when we take care of and gladden Hashem's people, then Hashem will gladden us. That's l'simcha l'sasai. Now, also, if you remember when we talked about Purim, that Yemei Simcha u'mishteh u'mishloach manas, we said that the Rambam says, Ein Simcha mefuara, there's no more glorious Simcha than Mesameach leiv aniyim u'yisaimim geirim v'almanos. So that Simcha, that's Asiyenu Hashem Lekeinu Esbirkas Ma'adecha L'Simcha L'Sasan. But what about, it says, Asiyenu Hashem Lekeinu Esbirkas Ma'adecha L'chaim U'L'Shalom. Happens to be that we mentioned this pasuk in Yeshaya in tonight's daf. In Daf Tzadik Tes of Sanhedrin, we mentioned this pasuk which is cited in Vayikra Rabbah. The Baba Sali brings down this pasuk from Vayikra Rabbah, from the Medrash Vayikra. It's in Yeshaya Perek Chav Zayin, pasuk Hey. O Yachazik b'ma'uzi, if you strengthen my stronghold, Shalom li, peace there will be by me. Shalom yasali, you're making peace for me. So what does this mean? You strengthen Hashem's stronghold, and Hashem said, you made peace for me. Peace you did for me. He says it repetitively, Hashem. So the Medrash says that the poor person has tainus on Hashem. You know, Hashem, everybody has food. I don't have food. Everybody has a place to sleep. I don't have a place to sleep. Everybody has a roof over their head. I don't have a roof over their head. And the ani has tainus on Hashem. He says, you take care of the ani, you make peace between me and the ani. But as to Baba Sali, it says twice, Shalom li, Shalom yasali. What's the twice? He says, the ani is fighting with his wife. The ani's married. He's fighting with his wife because it says if there's no food in the cookie jar, then the couple is going to be fighting. That's what it says. Hanoising gvulei shalom, when is in their borders peace? Chelev chitim yazbiach, when there's enough cream of wheat to satisfy them. But if there isn't food, then they're going to be fighting. And if they're fighting, there's no shalom bayis, there's no shchina. So not only do you make peace that the ani doesn't have tainus on me, but you restore peace in the home. You restore peace in the home, that brings the shchina back to the home, because ish v'ish shalom b'neim, shchina shurim b'neim. So once again, you're making peace for me in that household. Ooh, shalom li, shalom li, shalom yasa li, says the Baba Sali. A person who makes peace, oh, Hashem will reward him with peace in his home. What better bracha is there? What better bracha is there? And by the way, this idea is mentioned in Pirkei Avos. In Pirkei Avos it says, Mar b'tzedakah, mar b'shalom. It's a big chiddush. Most people think that tzedakah gives wealth. Aser b'shvil shetisasher. Give maisi, you should become rich. It gives life. Tzedakah tatzim amavas. They don't readily see that the reward of tzedakah is peace. You know, some families have good peace. They're getting along. That's, by the way, a rare commodity in these days. A lot of homes, even if there's no fighting, it's like living in a dormitory, where the couple goes on their own way, each on their own way. That's not shalom. A person who gives tzedakah is given midah keneged midah. He makes peace with Hashem. He makes peace. Reb Chaim Palaji says he makes peace also between the husband and wife, because he restores their financial stability. Mar b'tzedakah, mar b'shalom. Then a person will have peace. In Brisk, they say that we start the Haggadah with Kol Dechvin Yesei V'Yechel, Kol Detzrich Yesei V'Yifsach, because a poor man, a slave, can't invite people. Because Kol Mashkona Eved Kona Rabbi, a slave doesn't have anything. But now we're free men, now we could invite people. We thank Hashem that I have the ability, I could be a host. Now, once we're on this subject of Kol Dechvin Yesei V'Yechel, the Heilige Bluzhever Rebbe, those that remember, I was zeicher that the Friedrich Bluzhever Rebbe did the upsharing of my firstborn, of my Nehemiah. My stepfather, Saba, was a very big Talmud, didn't move without the Bluzhev Rebbe. The Heilige Bluzhev, he was one of the great war heroes. You know, the Bluzhev Rebbe and the Klosenberg Rebbe and the Satmar Rebbe. They came out from the war. They didn't lose from their personal dignity, from their shmiras hamitzvahs. They didn't lose anything. You know that if you read the new art scroll biography on the Klosenberger Rebbe, how careful the Klosenberger Rebbe was during Pesach not to eat anything that had a chash chametz. Somebody had for him a potato, but he was afraid how the potato was boiled, so he didn't eat it. He was starving. And he wandered around, already faint from hunger. And he found growing on the ground fresh beets. And he ate the beets, and he felt like it was a kiss from Hashem, that Hashem was happy with his chumras. I mean, we're talking about malachim. It was freezing in their prison pajamas. It was freezing. And someone somehow got for the Rebbe, you know, for a Rebbe, people do inhuman things. Somehow, someone got for the Rebbe a coat. But the coat didn't button the Hasidic way. The Hasidim button in a certain way. The coat didn't button the Hasidic way. He refused to wear the coat. This is a person that held on. So the Bluzhev Rebbe was such a person. One of the great, shining giants that showed us what a Yid, the Rebbeinu Shalom in every generation puts to show us what a Yid is supposed to be like. Sent us a Bobov Rebbe, the Heilige Reb Shlomo Mebobov, Zer Tzadik L'Vracha Schuzi Yagan Aleinu, who on the boat to America, there was such a violent storm that everyone was green from seasickness. And again, once again, a Rebbe, someone found a sucking candy with a proper hashgacha, which was a tremendous relief. And they gave it to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe surprisingly refused to take it. They said, Rebbe, it'll make you feel better. He said, as long as there's one Yid left by the gas chambers, by the Nazis, he's not putting a tzickerel into his mouth, a sucking candy. This is in the midst of terrible seasickness. You have to understand, these are people that were left to show us what it means to live like a Jew. Anyway, it's interesting that the Bluzhev Rebbe, in his Tzfilah Tzadik, the Bluzhev Rebbe says that we start the Haggadah with Kol Dichvin Yesei V'Yechel. It's coming to teach us Kol Dichvin. Anyone who is hungry, Yesei V'Yechel, he deserves to come and eat by the Seder. We're supposed to know that Erev Pesach this year, it's the whole different business because it's Shabbos, but normally on Erev Pesach you don't eat too much during the day. So that you come to the Seder and you eat the Matza l'teyavim. Kol dichvin. If you're taka hungry, said the Bluzhev Rebbe, Yesei v'Yechel. You're a person that deserves to eat. And by the way, this is not just Pesach. Every Friday, there's an Indian not to eat a lot. Many people have a minig not to fast after not to wash after Chatzos on Friday. On Friday, eat very sparingly. I told you that the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch says that it's good to give the digestive system a break once a week, and it's in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. He recommends skipping lunch on Friday. Why? so that when you come to the Shabbos meal, you should be, I can't wait. Should eat l'tei oven. That's the way the Rebbeinu Shalom wants us to come to the Shabbos table. That's the way the Rebbeinu Shalom wants it. And you know, things get corrupted. It's a funny thing in life how things get corrupted. Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky used to say that, you know, they give by a yahrzeit, they give tikkun. He says, what's tikkun? So he says, it used to be that people fast on a yahrzeit. Then what they did was, in order not to fast, like by Siyam B'chayrim, they made a Siyam and they gave food so they didn't have to fast. Today, they forget about fasting, they forget about the Siyam, and they just give the food. Things get corrupted. Now, we know there's a Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi says, Toyameh Chayim Zachu. Those who taste the food, Chayim Zachu. So today, we created an industry. Come and get Toyameha. And there's a whole spread, buffalo wings and frankfurters and in buns and that's not Toyameha. Toyameha means only taste it. So that you should come to the Seder with an appetite. Not that you should have a piece of the potato kugel, then the lakshin kugel, that fish, a piece of fish, the cholent, a little cholent. Let me have a piece of that fresh cake that just came out of the oven. Then it comes the meal, a person has some challah, a piece of fish, he drinks the soup, and then he pushes away, tells his wife, I'm full. That's not. The Heilige Belushi Rebbe said, Kol dichvin. If you're hungry, you didn't eat, so you should have an appetite for the food. That's the Michla das Wasser, the Heilige Matza, the Morer, the Charaisis, the Kairech. You're the one that deserves to come and eat. In the new Haggadah's Beis Aaron, this is not the Beis Aaron from Karlin, this is not the Beis Aaron that I always quote with all the 9 different Pirushim. There's a new, very nice Haggadah put out this year, a Chassidish Haggadah called Haggadah's Beis Aaron. He says, it's a very important idea. He says that we know that the mood, there's a certain mood that we're supposed to set by the Seder. You know, you go to certain very fancy restaurants and they try to create a mood. The room's a little darker and they have a separate little lamp on each table. Maybe there's a fireplace. They're piping in background music that should be only slightly noticeable. It's to create a romantic mood. There's a mood by the Seder. The mood by the Seder is a mood of freedom. And that's why we drink wine. It says we're supposed to taste the wine before Pesach, so that we shouldn't grimace when we drink the wine. That's not the wine that we drink. The wine of the Arba Kaises, the Gemara says, if you drink certain wine, Yedei Yain Yatzi, Yedei Cheres Lo Yatza. Has to give a feeling, a mellowness, a freedom. Chayav Adam Lira says, Atzmai, Kilu Yatzim Mitzrayim. So the Beis Aaron says that a greedy person, a kamtzan, a miser, is not free. He's trapped by his money. Do you know that people are trapped by money? So you'll say, what do I mean by that? What do you mean? You know, HaKesef Yana is HaKol. Money is the answer to everything. A person is trapped by money. Do you know that there are many people? I know, somebody told me, Rabbi, I never had time for my children. I'm at least trying to correct it by my grandchildren. I had a balabas who came to me. It's a true story. And he told me, last night we sat around and we were making the place settings for the seats at the chasana. And I had my son with me. It's mamish, the chasana is the next day, and we were making, the seats, filling out the cards, with the table numbers. So I said, that's beautiful. You know how many people would wish to be in your shoes, that they can't get shidduch? You have a beautiful shidduch, you're making a wedding, that's beautiful. He says, no, I know that. I realize I'm very grateful. But he says, while we were doing it, it dawned on me that this is the last night that my son is living at home. And that's it. And Rabbi, I realized I messed up. I never had time for him. I was always busy. I was always at the office. And then when I came home, I was too tired. I never had time. Such a person, is he free? He's trapped. There are men who never spend time with their wives. They're too busy. And when they're finished, they come home, they're already a washed out dish towel. That's a free person. It says, somebody was telling me, I know someone, he has a Midas touch, he has a golden touch. Whatever he touches, he was telling me, he just bought a place, a warehouse, and he made a pickleball club. And he bought another place, and he converted it into a fancy restaurant. He says, whatever he touches. I said, yeah, but he's not stopping. He's not stopping. When is he going to live? That the Rav on the Mishnah Marba Nechosim Marba Daiga, you have a lot of property, you have a lot of worries. So it's true that if a person, I know somebody, a good friend of mine, he invested in 4 properties, 4 houses. He collects nice rent from 4 properties. And the money he pays for the property is a lot less than the rent that he collects. And it's on paper, it looks like he's really made a very good investment. And then somebody tripped in front of one of his properties, and he's suing him for $2 million. Another one of his properties, there was a problem, and the water tank exploded. And it did water damage, and there's mold, and he's busy with Marba Nechosim. That's the simple pshat of Marba Nechosim, Marba Daika. But that's not what the Rav says. The Rav says is something called Pizur HaNefesh. What's Pizur HaNefesh? The fragmentation of the soul. Here's a person who came up with a great idea, and now he franchised it, so he has stores in Australia, in London, in California, in Johannesburg. What does that mean? That not only does he have many stores, but they're on all kinds of different time zones. And they're bothering him in the middle of the night and early in the morning. Pizur HaNefesh means fragmentation of the soul. You don't want to says the Beis Aaron, it's such an important thing. We tell the children, don't be a miser. Don't be a slave to your money. You have to know that then you're not free. You have to know by the Pidyon Haben, the Kohen asks the father, my boys tvei, what do you want more? The 5 shkalim or the child? Now that sounds like such a ridiculous question. I remember I'm holding my little Nehemiah. My little Nehemiah was worth more to me than anything in the world. And the Kohen asked me, what you want more? It It sounds stupid. But a lot of people, they end up sacrificing their time with their children for money. The best presents to your children is more of your presence. That's why we start the Haggadah with, we want to have an aura of freedom. You have to know that people are slaves to money. But it doesn't stop there. Somebody has 100, he wants 200. But when he has 1 million, he wants 2 million. And when he has 10 million, he wants 20 million. It keeps on getting further away. So money is like quicksand. So you have to know. Don't be a prisoner to your money if you want to sense freedom. Now I want to tell you something else. If we want there to be an aura of freedom by the Seder, if we want to, just like we drink the wine and we want to feel mellow, if we want there to be true freedom, we need something else. Ein ben chayrin ela misha oisik b'Torah. No one is free except if they really dedicate themselves to Torah. Because it says, charus ala luchais. The Torah is etched on the luchais. Al tikrei charus ela cheirus. Ein ben chayrin ela misha oisik b'Torah. Now, Rav Irving Bunim, he asked a big kasha. He says, to the contrary, it seems to be that the Torah restricts us. You can't look. You can't talk. Right? You can't look. You can't talk. Oh, that. Did you ever taste that delicious lobster? Or that amazing bacon? Can't eat. Shabbos, it's so hot. Can't turn on the air conditioner. Can't. That's a ben chayrin? Says Rav Irving Bunim, a person that plays a violin, the melody of the violin is so beautiful. But the strings of the violin only make music when they're tied on the top and the bottom. If you want there to be the music of life, the freedom of life, we have to be tied to the Torah. Ein ben chayrin ela misha oisik b'Torah. That's why it says that afterwards you'll go out with great wealth. What's the great wealth? The true great wealth is the Torah. That we would get our Har Sinai. That's why there's a minig. It's a beautiful minig. I used to do it. If you're fortunate enough to have writings of Torah, you're supposed to bring your kisvei Torah, your notes, to the table by the Seder. You're supposed to bring it to the table by the Seder. Because it says that we're supposed to chayv adam liras atzma kilu yatzma mitzrayim, and we came out with great wealth. And your children say, Tati, I heard there's a minute that people make sure there's no esrig, and they bring their esrig holder to the table, their silver esrig holder, and the women bring their pearls to the Torah, or maybe some golden necklaces that they have, and people take the Megillah. The Megillah's muktzah, they take the Megillah out of the Megillah holder, and they put the silver Megillah holder on the table. But your notebook? You tell your child, Toiv li Teiras picha me'alfei zav chesef. Better is the Torah than thousands of coins of gold and silver. And the truth of the matter is that we need that there should be an aura of peace in the home. Teiras Hashem temima mishivas nafesh. The Torah of Hashem is perfect. It rejuvenates and restores the soul. Pikurli Hashem Yesharim Misamchei Leiv. It makes the heart happy. So an important part of creating the aura of the home on the Seder, this is the mastery of the parents, that they should create such an aura. And included in this, and with this very important point, I'm going to conclude. But before I do, I want to thank our sponsor for this very important share. My long time Talmidim Yitz Hashem Til Mashiach, the Fassler family, the Refuah Shalema for Gedalia Aryeh ben Fega Sima, B'Seich Shar Chila Yisrael, and the schus of our global learning. If you would like to dedicate next week's Haggadah Shir, which is heard just on TorahAnytime.com alone, it's heard and viewed by over 1,000 people, but it's also heard and viewed by many other mediums as well. 718-916-3100. You could text 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com. For proper chayris to reign in a home, the wife has to feel a sense of freedom. Now, the fact that the wife is important is especially true on Pesach because b'schus nashim tzidkani yoyeh ba'osa adar nigalu. In the merit of the righteous women of that generation, we were redeemed, not just because of the righteous women like Yocheved and Miriam as the courageous midwives. Miriam, who stood by the waters to see the fate of Moshe Rabbeinu. Miriam, who told her father that he should take Yocheved back in order that we should have children. Basia, who took Moshe Rabbeinu and risked the wrath of her father Paro to save him. Tzipora, who circumcised Moshe Rabbeinu's son before the snake would swallow Moshe Rabbeinu, and also all of the righteous women of Mitzrayim who didn't give up like their husbands, and Tachas HaTapuach or Articha stirred their husbands under the apple tree. So of course, but the fact of the matter is that there are unfortunately many women that don't feel a sense of ease in their homes. Their husbands are controlling. Their husbands are dominating. Their husbands don't even let them finish a question before they say no. I said this many times, and I can't say it enough. Can't say it enough. Naomi told Rus and Erpa, Mitzena menucha isha beis isha. I wish for you that each one of you should find contentment in the homes of your husband. That contentment, that's the ruach that we want at the Seder. A ruach, especially the women work so hard, they should feel at ease. They should feel a spirit of, this needs to be worked on. It's interesting. The Ashkenazim don't have the minig, but by certain stripes of Svardim, there's a minig to buy roses by the Seder table. It's not an Ashkenazic minig, but it's a beautiful minig. And I've been thinking about this minig a lot. You see, a rose by another name in the Gemara is called Vered, Vav Reish Dalet. Do you know that Vered is the gematria of 210? Vav Reish Dalet is 210. Vav is 6, Reish is 200, Dalet is 4, is 210. Because we're celebrating that we came out of Mitzrayim that night after 210 years. Vered is also the same letters as Dur, a generation. Because that's what we're doing by this Seder. We're giving over to the next generation. It's more than that. It's really, I realized it. I didn't realize this till this year. But the gematria of Shoshana, is a very, very famous gematria. The gematria of Shoshana is 661. Shin is 300, Vav is 6, that's 306, Shin is another 300, 606, Nun is 50, 656, Hey is 5, is 661. Do you know what the gematria is 661? Esther. Aleph is 1, Samach is 60 at 61, Tuf is 400, and Reish is 200, 661. You know why? Because the 2 nights of the Sedarim are the 2 nights of the Sudas Esther. By the second Seder, Haman was hung. So the Shoshana remembers the 2 Sudas Esther. It's really amazing. We know that by the Shechina, it comes the night of Pesach. It says, "U'v'mayre gadol zu gilui Shechina." That's why when Pesach falls on Friday night, there are very few Haggadahs that have Shalom Aleichem. Because many people don't say Shalom Aleichem by the Seder. They don't need the Malachim. Hashem is there. U'v'mayre gadol zu gilui Shechina. That's why it's Hallel Shimurim. It's a night of protection. Some say that the snare was a rose bush, and that's when Hashem appeared to Moshe. That's another reason to have roses. But another reason is because we want the Shechina. The Shechina comes when Ish v'Isha Shala Beinayim, Shechina Shriya Beinayim. To create this aura, we want to have roses by the Seder. I don't want you to miss out on the major message of this year. Kimcha de Pischa Ma'is Chitin, it doesn't mean money to buy your matzah, money to buy the grain for your matzah. It's the money to give away to the poor for matzah. Because that's even more important than our eating matzah. It's being mesaken the generation of Sodom v'Amorah, of the Dor HaMabul, that were reincarnated in the Jews of Mitzrayim, and that's why they had to have Lachma Anya. And that's why we say Kol Dechvin Yosef Yechel on Pesach, that represents Avram, who taught us Chesed. And therefore, that's why it says Ala Chag Nidoinin Ala Tfuah. On Pesach, we're judged for our Tfuah, which means our yield, our Parnasa. Tfuah means our yield, what we will bring in. And we demonstrate that we want Midah Keneged Midah by giving to others. And that way we're Zeicha, like the Baba Sali says, Tavasienu Hashem Elokeinu es birchas me'yedecha, l'chaim, l'shalom, l'simcha, l'sasai, for all the rewards of giving the Kimcha de Pischa. We want to thank you very much for joining us, and wish all of you a good night and a good Shabbos.